Hi, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a second quarter review of our homeschool, and so if you enjoy this type of content and other homeschool and lifestyle content, please remember to subscribe and let's get into it. Okay, it has been like 2 weeks, maybe longer, since I filmed a video. We have been kind of crazy over here, to be honest. My husband was gone with my oldest son for 2 weeks in China. My husband was teaching over there as part of his job, and so my son went along with him. And it was a little bit of a crazy adventure for them there. And it was also crazy here. I was sick. I did film a little bit while he was gone, but I was sick some of that time and mostly better now. And then he got back right before Christmas, like the week before Christmas. And I'm just like, we're just gonna take a break. So that's what we did. We were already done with homeschool at that point for our Christmas break. So we took a break that week and took almost the whole next week off too. And so here I am trying to get some content done. And then we'll still be off for homeschool for about another week. By the time you see this, I believe we'll be about ready to start school again in January, since my husband starts later in January teaching at the university. I wait until he starts for us to start. We just all kind of start at the same time. And that's also when one of my daughter's music starts again, is a little bit later in January. So we just start everything at the same time. But I wanted to come in here today and give you a review of this last quarter and also talk a little bit about our Christmas schooling that I had shared with you on this channel probably about a month ago. I can't remember exactly for sure. So that's kind of what we're gonna go over today. Okay, the first thing I wanted to mention is that we finished the Health and the Human Mind Science unit from The Good and the Beautiful, and I loved it. It was so good. So my last review, we had done geology from The Good and the Beautiful, and there was a lot of hands-on. You know, geology is just hands-on generally. Like by nature, that's just the way it is. And so I was like, what is this one gonna be like? Obviously it's not, you know, we're not going in the brain here and being hands-on. I was actually very, very surprised and impressed with all the hands-on activities that they came up with for this unit. There was so many great things, and a lot of great things too in the student workbook. One of them, I wish I had, I think I might have taken a picture of it. I can't remember. I didn't take any video of it, but there was a brain that they were able to like cut out of this workbook, and like you could shape it so it fit kind of like a hat on your head. And it had all the different lobes on it, what they do, you know, like where speech is found and all that different kind of stuff all over it. And my younger kids loved it. They just wore these little brains around on top of their heads for at least the whole day. Some of them kept it for a little bit longer. And so there was some really fun activities. There's, again, it talks about senses. And so there was a lot of really good hands-on activities for your senses and having to taste things or smell things. And so my kids, you know, had to close their eyes and try things, and some of them didn't really like that. You know, you're learning about the different flavors that you can taste and different things like that. So I was really impressed by the variety of activities, considering it's not necessarily the easiest thing to talk about hands-on, but there was some really, really great activities in it. And so I'm excited to do the next science unit from The Good and the Beautiful. I'm always so excited, but they're just always so good and so fun. And they're also shorter. You know, they're really good for about a quarter of our school year. Some of them are a little shorter, some are a little longer, but they fit really well, which again is great. You can get in, talk about it, but then you're done before anybody's bored. So I really, really appreciate that. Okay, the next thing I wanted to mention is that math and language arts are going really well. He just turned 9. My 9-year-old is pretty advanced in math, so we just keep moving him along. He's almost done with math 4 from The Good and the Beautiful, so I got math 5, so he's gonna be starting on that. So his sister that's just older than him is also on math 5. And I have mentioned this so many times before, but if you're new here or just don't know, I know sometimes everyone homeschools a little different. They might be a little bit more rigid about doing the school book, like starting in August and finishing like in May or whatever, and only using this book, and that's the way we do it. But if my kids are struggling, we slow down. If they are flying through it, we speed up and I find something else. And so a few years ago, we totally skipped, I think, first grade math for him because it was just way too easy. He's technically, I think in 3rd grade. And so we just skipped it 1st grade altogether because he was ready to just jump into 2nd grade math. And then he's gone through it a little faster. Sometimes they just really like doing their math lessons. And so if they go through it faster and we get done before the end of the school year, I just skip the next level and they start on that. So that's kind of how we roll around here. And you'll see the opposite as we are more advanced in math. We're not as far in language arts. And I know some of the Good and the Beautiful's language arts are a little bit more advanced, you know, like level 4 might not be for 4th graders. It might be a little harder for 4th graders. Sorry if you can hear, my daughter is sitting over here coloring and listening to Taylor Swift on the headphones. So anyway, she's might drop a colored pencil here and there. But we finished level 4. Well, my daughter finished, my 5th grader finished level 4 from the Good and the Beautiful of their language arts. I already threw the books away, so I just have the readers here. And so we're gonna start level 5. Her and my 6th grader were both doing level 4 together. Well, basically together. They weren't always on the same lesson. So starting January, we're gonna start the next level, level 5 of the Good and the Beautiful. And they might stay together. Sometimes they get off lessons. It just kind of depends how everything's going. So we're gonna start this. So I've had these for almost a year probably, because I didn't know how fast we had moved through the last one, but we're ready for it now. So this is all the books, and then it has watercoloring stuff in here as well. So that's where we are with them. We're gonna start moving forward with that. And again, they might be, I wouldn't consider them behind, but they might be a little bit more behind than some. It's not, they're in 5th and 6th grade, so they're on level 5 and 6, right? They're on the level that works best for them right now, and this is currently it. So that's where we are with that. And then my 1st grader, I think I mentioned in the last video that we had started going back through the Good and the Beautiful's language arts for level K, and that it was working really well. So we've continued to do that. She's doing really well. We're in a good spot now for her with some reading. We still go slow and make sure she gets it, but I feel like the understanding is there. I try not to push them. It's hard not to push when you're like, oh, they're supposed to be reading, and you have all these things telling you they're supposed to be reading and things like that, or oh, she should know all of her letters, and I'm like, she'll get them. She'll just give it time. It'll be okay. And we're giving it time, and again, in her own speed, she is starting to get it. So that's kind of where we are with that. So that's our language arts and math updates. And then we're still going through our 50 states right here. We took a break. When my husband was gone, we continued to do science because we were almost done with the health and the human mind science unit. And so we continued to do it so we could finish it before Christmas. But this one is probably gonna take us 2 years to go through because it's really just that long. There's a lot of states, and it has like 2 lessons per state. And it includes Washington, DC in here and stuff like that. So it takes a little while for it, but we've continued to go through it. Again, I don't love it. I don't hate it. Like, it's there, it works well. So we've been doing it. And then this is the reader that went with the last unit. We were talking kind of, I think, about Pennsylvania, New Jersey, those states right there. So this story takes place in Pennsylvania. And just how, at first I was like, I thought this story was out west, like where I live, out west. Maybe not that far, but you know, the edge of the frontier. Well, at the time, the edge of the frontier was the edge of Pennsylvania. And you know, they're in the backwoods trying to survive, and she misses her town. She, I think, lived in Gettysburg and stuff, and she missed being there and missed her friends and stuff like that. And so it was just interesting, like, oh, this isn't like across the whole United States. She's just on the other side of Pennsylvania, not in Gettysburg. So this was a fun story. I actually enjoyed it more than the other one we read. I can't even remember what it's called. It was like where the animals were talking and stuff like that. And so I enjoyed this story a little bit more, and they just go along with here. So usually when you finish a certain unit of states, you've also finished a reader that kind of went along with that area, so you can be a little bit more familiar with what's happening in that area and have a literature component to studying the United States. Okay, and then the read alouds we were doing, that like besides The Cabin Faced West, was The Towers Are Falling, which we still need to finish this one. we kind of just like got a little sluggish. I like the idea of the book. The writing's not super great, to be honest. And so that part of it I don't love, but the storyline, I like want to see where it goes. I think we're about halfway done with it. We haven't read it in probably at least a month. Like before my son left, there was some books where I was like, do I want to read them for him to like miss all this stuff? Or like, and he could read them himself when he gets back. I'm not really sure. That was the plan with this. I was going to finish this before Christmas, but then when I ended up sick and wasn't able to read for long periods of time or really read at all, I think only read one chapter while he was gone. And so we've started reading it again while we've been on break. Like just yesterday, I started again. So we're gonna try to get through these in the next week while we're still on break. And so then we can start new books in January going into our next quarter. So that's kind of the game plan. We might still be finishing these up a little bit into our next quarter, but I'm trying to have them done before we start the next quarter. Okay, the last thing I wanted to mention was Christmas Around the World. This is again something we didn't do as much with as I wanted to. This was part of our Christmas schooling, and I just picked 2 countries. I had picked Australia and France, and we did a good amount with Australia. We talked about it, we made pavlova. We even made pavlova on Christmas Eve because we just thought it was a fun tradition. It's a little bit out of the norm because in Australia it's summertime at Christmas, so it's more of a summertime dessert because it's like whipped cream and berries in a meringue and stuff like that. And so it screams more summer than it does winter, like cold winter where I live. But it's still a lot of fun and it was something different. And so my kids really enjoyed that and trying to make something new. We were going to make a dessert for France. We just never got to it. And then my husband and son came home a day early and stuff. So that threw a few things off that we had planned to do. But we did talk a little bit about Christmas in France as well. So maybe we'll do it again next year and we can make like the Yule log because that's what we were going to do. And then also the fingerprint activities, I think were a hit. We didn't get through all of these things. Again, it was nice to have them if we needed them. My kids did some of the pages in here. I don't even know whose this one is or what pages they've even done. If you could even see, right now it looks like they've done none, but there is some in here that they have done. And so it's a lot of fun. The nice thing is it doesn't have to just be for Christmas. Like if they're bored or need something to do when they're done with their schoolwork, we can just pull these out and I don't have to prep anything, which is what I love about that. And it's fairly minimal mess. They usually just sit there with like a little towel or baby wipe or something and wipe their finger. The other thing I wanted to mention was these books. We got to watercolor. We didn't, again, use them as much as I thought. With me being sick, a lot of things got brushed aside. And so we just didn't do them. Some of my kids did do watercolor a little bit, but the nice thing is we can either just do it throughout the year or I can keep them and we can do it again next year. We can make copies, we can trace them even on our own watercolor paper that we have and still use them. So there's still a lot of good uses for this, even if we weren't able to use it a whole lot this year. Okay, so that is my second quarter review of how our homeschool went. It was pretty good for the most part. There was some unexpected things, you know, sickness always throws a wrench in everything, and we had a lot among all of us, our whole family, throughout this last quarter. So hopefully this next quarter is a little bit better. And I enjoyed all the things that we were learning, the science units, the Christmas stuff. It was just a lot of fun. So I'm excited to go into the next units and study. Winter is always hard just because we're cramped inside a little bit more. And so if you have tricks or things that you just like to do during this time of year to make homeschool a little easier, to make your life a little easier, more fun, put it down in the comments because I think we all need a little help, especially where I live, we all need a little help. And remember to give this video a thumbs up and I will see you next time.